Sunday, February 22, 2026. If you're listening to this on your morning commute or maybe while you're making coffee, I want you to take a second and just mentally mark this date.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those days.
Because while the world has been doom scrolling through election cycles or worrying about interest rates, the ceiling of our reality, literally the sky above our heads, has been fundamentally remodeled.
It really has. It is one of those shifts that feels gradual when you live through it, but will look sudden in the history books.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are stripping away the press release fluff. We aren't doing the whole space is cool routine.
Right, we're past that.
Way past that. We are doing a hard tactical analysis of a stack of reports that just landed on our desk this week.
And it's quite a stack.
We're talking RAND Corporation threat assessments, translated technical schematics from the China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology, and some very dry but very revealing updates from the China Manned Space Agency.
And the picture that emerges from these documents is, it's stark. It is not just about catching up to the West anymore. That narrative is, it's at least 5 years out of date.
Yeah.
We are looking at a divergent evolution in how human beings actually utilize space.
Exactly. I think for a lot of you listening right now, the whole space race concept is this black and white newsreel from the 1960s. Or maybe it's just Elon Musk versus the laws of physics.
Right.
But if you look at the reality of today, right now, early 2026, the center of gravity is moving east. We're talking about a fully operational space station that is currently inhabited, a commercial sector that is effectively cloning and improving on the Starship architecture, and a moon landing that is strictly on schedule for 2030.
And that 2030 date is the critical anchor here.
Yeah.
In the Western space, community dates are often, they're aspirational.
We call them right shifts.
Exactly right. Schedules slip. What the data shows about China's program is a terrifying adherence to the calendar. When they say they will be on the lunar surface in 4 years, the math suggests they aren't bluffing.
So our mission today is to decode exactly how China plans to become the dominant space power by 2045. We're going to look at the Heavenly Palace currently orbiting overhead. We'll look at the monster rocket designed to catch itself in a net.
Which is wild.
Which we will get to because the physics of that are just wild. And the plan to turn the lunar South Pole into a resource extraction zone. If you're wondering if the rules of the game have changed, well, they haven't just changed. Someone else is rewriting the rule book while we're still reading the table of contents.
The big aha moment for me combing through this research was the shift in philosophy. We used to see China doing these state-run prestige projects, flags and footprints.
Yeah, the Apollo style.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we are seeing the foundation of a $1 trillion deep space economy. They aren't building monuments, they're building a supply chain.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the concrete reality. The hardware that is physically flying 400 kilometers above our heads right now, the Tiangong space station.
The Heavenly Palace.
As of today, February 2026, what exactly are we looking at? Because the diagrams in the CMSA reports show this thing has evolved a lot since that first module went up.
It has. We are looking at the completed T-shaped configuration right now. It is a modular masterpiece.
Yeah.
In the center, you have the Tianhe core module.
Harmony of the heavens.
Harmony of the heavens. That's the command center, the living quarters. Then docked on either side, you have the laboratory modules, Wentian and Mengxian.
Quest for the heavens and dreaming of the heavens, they certainly win the branding war on names.
They do have a poetic flair, don't they? But the engineering is brutally pragmatic. It's about 55 meters across, weighing in at roughly 100 metric tons.
Okay, so to give you a sense of scale, that's about 1/3 the mass of the International Space Station.
Right. But volume isn't the only metric that matters here. Because Tiangong is built with 2020's technology rather than 1990's technology, the internal habitable volume is incredibly efficient. It's less cluttered. It's cleaner.
I was reading about the interior, and honestly, it sounds nicer than my first apartment.
Oh, absolutely.
We're seeing a shift in how they treat the human element of spaceflight. It's not just survival anymore, it's residency.
That is a key insight. When you plan to stay somewhere permanently, you stop designing for camping and start designing for living. Look at the food systems. This was the major point in those logistical reports we went through.
This is my favorite part of the stack. The menu. We usually think of space food as freeze-dried blocks or paste in a tube.
Right, the tang and the foil packets.
Exactly. But on Tiangong,
it's practically a restaurant.
Huh.
They have over 120 menu items. We're talking kung pao, chicken shredded pork, in garlic sauce black pepper beef.
Unbelievable.
But the real engineering flex, and I use that term deliberately, is the kitchen hardware.
Space air
The
fryer.
space air fryer. Sounds like a gimmick, right?
Yeah.
A late-night TV gadget for astronauts.
Yeah.
But from a fluid dynamics perspective, it is an absolute nightmare to build.
Break that down for us. Why can't I just bring my standard kitchen air fryer up to orbit? Why is that hard?
It all comes down to convection. On Earth, hot air rises and cold air sinks. That natural circulation is what cooks your food evenly.
Okay.
In microgravity, hot air just sits there, doesn't know up from down.
Wow.
So if you turn on a heating element in space, you just get a superheated pocket of air right next to the coil and cold air everywhere else. Your chicken would be burnt to a crisp on one side and completely raw on the other.
So it's fundamentally a thermodynamics problem.
Exactly. They had to engineer a forced convection system with a specialized residue collector, because the other danger is crumbs.
Right.
In zero-G, a floating crumb is a shrapnel risk. It can fly into an eye, inhale into a lung, or clog a vital air filter.
That's terrifying.
It is. So this device creates a precise contained airflow that cooks the food, giving them actual roast chicken wings and grilled steak, while actively vacuuming up any debris.
It seems like a small detail, but when you're up there for 6 months, the difference between rehydrated mush and roast chicken with an actual texture is probably the difference between a happy crew and a total psychological breakdown.
Morale is a mission-critical consumable, and they've optimized for it. Sleep stations with portholes, noise-canceling materials that bring the ambient volume down to 49 decibels.
That's quieter than a library.
It is, and Wi-Fi everywhere. They control the station lighting and temperature using apps on standard tablets. It's a smart home in low Earth orbit.
But we have to pivot here because it hasn't all been smooth sailing.
No, it hasn't.
The reports from late 2025, just a few months ago, really highlight a situation that got very real, very fast. The Shenzhou 20 and 21 drama.
Right. This is the stuff that usually stays classified until years later. But we're seeing the details emerge now. This was a massive stress test of their entire lifeboat protocol.
Set the scene for us. What went down?
So it's late 2025. You have the Shenzhou 20 crew on board Tiangong. They're prepping to return. But their return vehicle, the spacecraft docked outside, suffers an impact.
Oh, wow.
The analysis points to a space debris strike likely on the service module or the thermal protection system.
Which is the nightmare scenario. If you can't re-enter, you're stranded.
Exactly. And in the old days, or even with the Soyuz, this would be a crisis. You'd be scrambling to prep a rescue rocket on the pad, which takes months.
Yeah.
But China has maintained a strict policy of rolling standby. There is always a rescue ship almost ready to go.
So what actually happened?
They executed the protocol perfectly. They launched Shenzhou 21 early in October 2025. It flew up docked and effectively relieved the Shenzhou 20 crew.
And the old crew.
The Shenzhou 20 astronauts then used the new ship, the Shenzhou 21 vessel, to return home safely on November 14th.
Talk about a high-stakes game of musical chairs.
Very high stakes.
Yeah.
But it proved that their emergency contingency isn't just a binder on a shelf. They executed a rescue mission and crew rotation seamlessly. The Shenzhou 21 crew is currently up there right now running the station, knowing the system actually works.
And they aren't just maintaining the status quo either. The expansion plans in these documents are massive. They're going from a T-shape to a cross shape.
That's the Phase 2 expansion. They're launching a new multifunctional hub module. Think of it as a docking node on steroids. It adds 6 new docking ports.
6 ports.
This is crucial because it allows them to host more visiting vessels, cargo ships, cruise ships, and potentially international modules from partners.
And it also supports the telescope, the Xuntian.
The Chinese Hubble, although optically that's almost an insult to the Xuntian.
How does it compare? I mean, Hubble is iconic.
Hubble is iconic, but it has a very narrow field of view. It's like looking at the universe through a drinking straw. You see amazing detail, but only a tiny, tiny patch.
Right.
The Xuntian is designed to have a field of view 300 to 350 times larger than Hubble.
300 times? That's insane.
Yes. It can map vast swaths of the sky in a fraction of the time. It's designed for survey astronomy, dark matter research, galaxy formation. But the genius part isn't the lens, it's the logistics.
Explain that.
Hubble is dying because we can't fix it. It's in a different orbit, and we don't have the space shuttle anymore to go up and service it.
Right. We retired the tow truck.
Exactly. Xuntian, on the other hand, is designed to co-orbit with Tiangong. It flies just a few hundred kilometers away, close enough to be in the same neighborhood, but far enough that the station's vibrations don't ruin the pictures.
And when it breaks, Or needs an upgrade.
It burns a little fuel, flies over and docks with the station. The astronauts pop out, swap the batteries, upgrade the cameras, refuel it, and send it back out.
Wow.
It turns the space station into a service garage. It effectively makes the telescope immortal.
That is a brilliant integration of assets. It stops the station from just being a floating lab and turns it into a piece of infrastructure.
Which is exactly the mindset shift we talked about earlier, infrastructure.
Speaking of infrastructure, let's leave low Earth orbit. Because while the station is impressive, the real prize, the one the geopolitical analysts are sweating over, is the moon. And according to the RAND report, 2030 is looking less like a goal and more like a deadline.
It is very real. And I think Western observers have been lulled into a false sense of security because we've seen so many delays with our own programs.
Yeah, Artemis keeps getting pushed back.
We see Artemis shifting, right? So we assume everyone else is delayed too. But look at the milestones. Shenzhou 5, the spacewalks, the Qin rovers on the far side of the moon, they hit their dates. RAND assesses the 2030 human landing as realistic and feasible.
So let's talk about the chariot getting them there. The Long March 10.
This is a monster.
I'm looking at the specs here. 92.5 meters tall, liftoff weight of over 2,180 tons, and powered by 21 engines firing simultaneously at liftoff. That is a lot of plumbing.
It's a super heavy carrier rocket. It has to be. To get to the moon, you need to push about 27 tons into translunar injection. That's the trajectory that flings you out of Earth's gravity well.
But here's the thing that stopped me in my tracks. We are used to SpaceX landing their boosters. We've all seen the videos. The booster comes down, the legs pop out, and it lands on the drone ship.
Right.
The Long March 10 is doing something weird.
It's a divergent engineering choice. They're using a tethered catch system.
Explain this visually for us, because it's hard to picture.
So the rocket booster comes back down. It uses grid fins to steer just like the Falcon 9. It slows down with its engines. But instead of carrying heavy landing legs, which are just dead weight during the ascent, it has hooks.
Hooks.
On the ground, there's a specialized grid-shaped net recovery device.
So it's literally a giant catcher's mitt.
Essentially, yes. The rocket hovers over the pad and the ground system snaps onto it and holds it.
Why? Why introduce that crazy complexity on the ground? It seems incredibly risky to try and catch a building falling out of the sky.
It comes down to the rocket equation. In rocketry, mass is everything. Landing legs are heavy. Hydraulic pistons are heavy. Structural reinforcements to support the rocket landing on its own feet are heavy.
Right.
If you put 5 tons of landing gear on your rocket that is 5 tons of fuel or cargo, you cannot take to orbit.
So they are offloading the landing gear to the ground.
Precisely. By moving the capture mechanism to the launch pad, they keep the rocket lighter. It increases the payload efficiency drastically. It is a bold engineering choice, but if they pull it off, the benefits are massive.
And do we know if this actually works? Or is it just a drawing on a whiteboard somewhere?
Oh, it is definitely past the whiteboard stage. We have reports of a very recent test, just a couple of weeks ago, actually, on February 11, 2026. They conducted a low-altitude flight test of the Long March 10A at Wenchang.
This was the abort test, right?
It was a combined test.
Yeah.
They tested the abort capability, pulling the crew capsule away if the rocket fails, which is obviously critical for human safety. But they also tested the stage recovery logic. The test stage ascended, separated, and then performed the controlled descent maneuvers.
And what about the engines? Have they fired them all together?
Back in 2025, they were already doing successful 7-engine static fire tests. They were bending metal and lighting engines. This hardware is being built right now.
Okay, so they have the rocket, Long March 10. They also need a ship. We know Shenzhou is the taxi for the space station, but you can't take a taxi to the moon. You need an SUV.
That's the Mengzhu, the Dream vessel. It's their next-generation crew capsule. It comes in 2 versions, actually. One for low Earth orbit to replace Shenzhou, and a larger one designed for deep space radiation protection.
Got it.
And the lander, the thing that actually touches the lunar dust, is the Lanyu.
Embracing the moon.
Named after a Mao Zedong poem. It's a dedicated lunar lander. It weighs 26 tons, and it's a 2-stage design. It'll put 2 astronauts on the surface for a short stay.
So the 2030 mission profile is launch the big rocket, fly to the moon, 2 astronauts go down, flag footprints come home.
That's the 2030 mission. But that is just the ribbon cutting. What comes after is what actually matters. This brings us to the ILRS.
The International Lunar Research Station. This sounds like the end game.
It is the long game. The Apollo missions were amazing, but they were sorties. You go, you grab some rocks, you leave. The ILRS is about building a village.
So what is the roadmap here?
Phase 1 is targeted for completion by 2035. That is a basic base at the lunar South Pole. Energy, comms, navigation.
Why the South Pole? Everyone seems obsessed with the South Pole right now.
2 reasons. Light and water. The South Pole has crater rims like the Shackleton crater that receive almost continuous sunlight.
Which means infinite solar power.
Exactly. On the equator, you have 14 days of sunlight and 14 days of darkness. Surviving that 2-week lunar night is brutal on batteries and electronics. The temperature drops to -170°C.
Wow.
At the pole, on the peaks of eternal light, you have constant power.
And the water.
That's in the shadows. Deep inside those craters where the sun never shines, we believe there are billions of tons of water ice.
Water means life.
Water means fuel, hydrogen and oxygen. If you can mine the ice, you can breathe, you can drink, and you can split the molecules to refuel your rockets. Whoever controls the water on the moon controls the gas station of the entire solar system.
And China is building this ILRS to secure that exact spot. But international is in the name. Who is coming along for the ride?
Primarily, this started as a joint venture between China and Russia, Roscosmos. But China has been on a massive recruitment drive. They're looking for 50 countries, 500 institutes, and 5,000 scientists.
That is a lot of networking.
It is a geopolitical strategy. We have seen agreements with Pakistan, for instance. There is a confirmed deal to send a Pakistani astronaut to Tiangong. They are actively courting nations that might feel left out of the U.S.-led Artemis Accords.
It creates a parallel system. You have Team Artemis and Team ILRS.
Exactly. And the ILRS isn't just about science. It is about setting the precedent for who uses lunar resources and how.
Which is a perfect segue to the money. Because you can't build a moon village on prestige alone. You need a massive economy. And I think this is the part that surprises people the most, the commercial explosion in China.
It is staggering. We often think of the Chinese space program as purely the CMSA, the government, the military. And historically, that was true. But in the last 5 to 10 years, a massive commercial sector has emerged.
I was looking at the numbers from the CNA report. The commercial space market in China was expected to exceed 2.5 trillion yuan by the end of 2025.
Yeah.
That is roughly $350 billion US.
That is not pocket change. And this isn't just government contracts keeping lights on. This is private capital flowing into startups.
And one company keeps popping up in all these reports, LandSpace.
LandSpace is the front runner right now, without a doubt.
They have a rocket called the Zhuge 3. And looking at the specs here, stainless steel construction, methane liquid oxygen propellant, reusable, vertical takeoff and landing capability. I have to say it.
Say it.
It sounds very familiar.
It is very Musk-esque. It is clearly inspired by the Starship and Falcon architectures.
So is it just a copy or is it a legitimate competitor?
It is a competitor that has learned from the leader. Methane engines are notoriously difficult to engineer.
Why is that? What makes methane harder than the old kerosene engines?
Kerosene is stable. Methane is a cryogenic gas that wants to boil off. But methane burns much cleaner. It doesn't leave soot in the engine, which is critical if you want to reuse that engine 10 or 20 times without scrubbing it by hand.
Ah, okay.
LandSpace managed to launch the Zhuge 2, which was the world's first methane-fueled rocket to reach orbit. They beat SpaceX's Starship to that specific milestone, albeit with a much smaller rocket.
Still, that's a huge claim to fame.
It is. And with the Zhuge 3, they're aiming for full reusability. We saw the vertical takeoff and landing test, the VTVL test in late 2025. They hovered the test vehicle for 200 seconds and landed it gently. They are mastering the control logic needed to land a rocket booster. First orbital flight is expected very soon, late 2025 or early 2026.
So we have a private company in China, LandSpace, potentially matching the Falcon 9's capabilities right now and eyeing Starship's territory in the near future.
And they aren't the only ones. There are reportedly over 600 commercial space firms in China now. They are covering everything from remote sensing satellites to 3D printed rocket engines.
And the government is backing this. They're okay with private companies running the show.
Fully. They have designated the commercial space sector as a new engine of growth. They are setting up specialized regulations to support it. They're even opening up the talent pool.
I saw that in the notes, the K visas.
Yes. China is introducing new visa categories specifically to attract foreign tech talent to work in this sector. They realize that to build a deep space economy, which Xuntian predicts could be a $10 trillion global market by 2040, they need the absolute best brains. Not just Chinese brains.
That is a significant shift in posture, opening the doors like that.
It is. They are looking at space tourism, asteroid mining, space-based energy. They are treating space not as a high ground for missiles, but as a marketplace.
So let's zoom out here. We have the space station, the moon rocket, the moon base, and the commercial engine. What does this actually mean for the rules of the road?
This is the crux of the issue.
I want to quote Mike Gold here. He's a former NASA official, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, The countries that get there first will write the rules of the road.
It is a simple, undeniable truth. International law in space is sparse. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 says you can't plant a flag and own the moon, but it doesn't really say what happens if you mine a ton of water ice.
Right.
Can you sell it? Can you stop someone else from landing next to you and kicking up dust on your solar panels?
So if China sets up the ILRS at the best spot on the South Pole and they start extracting water, they are effectively setting the precedent for resource rights.
Exactly. And if they are the ones providing the power, the communications, and the navigation for anyone else who wants to visit, they control the standards. Think of it like the early internet.
Okay.
If you control the protocols, you influence the flow of information. If China controls the lunar protocols, the docking adapters, the comms frequencies, the power voltage, everyone else has to adapt to them.
And there is a soft power element here, too. We talked about the Wolf Amendment earlier.
Yes. The U.S. legislation passed in 2011. It effectively bans NASA from cooperating bilaterally with China. It was intended to isolate their space program and prevent technology theft.
But looking at where we are today in 2026.
It essentially backfired. It forced China to build everything themselves. They couldn't rely on the shuttle or the ISS, so they built Tiangong. They couldn't rely on GPS, so they built the Beidou navigation system.
Wow.
And now, because the U.S. won't partner with them, they're offering partnership to everyone else.
They are saying to the developing world, the ISS is an exclusive club, but Tiangong is open for business.
Precisely. They are offering astronaut training rack space for scientific experiments, even seats on the rocket to countries like Pakistan or European nations. It builds massive alliances. When the ISS retires, which is currently scheduled for 2030, Tiangong might be the only permanent space station in orbit for a period of time. That is immense geopolitical leverage.
It really is a competition of systems. You have the Artemis Accords, led by the U.S. focusing on a certain set of principles, and you have the ILRS, led by China and Russia, offering an alternative framework.
And we must remain completely neutral in our analysis here. But it is clear from the data that having two competing systems drives incredible innovation. It forces both sides to spend the money, do the research, and push the timeline.
Competition is good for speed.
The tortoise has strapped a rocket to its back, as we said.
So let's synthesize this. We started this deep dive asking if the red dragon is rising.
And the evidence from these reports is overwhelming.
We have Tiangong, a permanent home in orbit that is physically expanding as we speak. We have the Long March 10, a heavy lift capability that is passing its flight tests. We have the ILRS, a roadmap for a permanent moon base that partners are signing up for. And we have a commercial sector that is exploding with cash and innovation like Xuntian 3.
And critically, they are hitting their deadlines.
Yeah.
In the space industry, delays are the norm. China's strict adherence to their schedule is perhaps their most dangerous capability in this new race.
It forces us to ask a very big question. If China establishes that first permanent lunar base, and if they develop this deep space economy before anyone else, will the primary language of the solar system's future be Mandarin?
That is the big question. And more importantly, how will the rules of lunar mining differ if they are written in Beijing versus Washington? We are watching the foundation of a new era of human history being poured right now.
It is fascinating and a little terrifying, but mostly just incredibly exciting to watch unfold.
Agree completely.
Before we sign off, I have a little homework for you listeners. Tonight, or maybe early tomorrow morning, check your local astronomy apps. Look up. Tiangong is brighter than most stars. It is flying over us right now, carrying the Shenzhou 21 crew, cooking dinner in their zero-G air fryer, and preparing for a future that is coming a lot faster than we think.
Keep looking up.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.